Okay, geometry students, we're going to start our studies today in chapter 1. And of course, chapter 1 is like most chapter 1s in most classes. We're going to start off with an introduction to the course. And so we're going to be studying in chapter 1 of geometry, the basics of geometry. And the first lesson in chapter 1 is dealing with trying to find patterns, patterns of numbers, patterns of figures, and just trying to use common sense and reasoning and make a conjecture or a prediction about what would come next in a certain series or sequences of numbers or figures. So today in your notes, I would like you to write this down for your heading. Please copy this down. Finding and describing patterns. Finding and describing patterns, lesson 1.1. And then underneath this lesson, be sure and include today's date, okay? Be sure and include today's date so you have really good organized notes. And with that in mind, let's go ahead and jump into the lesson right away. Now, you want to go ahead and get out your textbooks, and I would like you to turn to page 3. Most of the time I will not have you use your textbooks. However, whenever there are a lot of figures that you have to draw, instead of drawing these figures, I would rather have you put page numbers in your notes instead of taking time to draw the figures. And I'll show you what I mean in just a second. So go ahead and take your books, please, and turn to page 3. And let's go ahead and look at numerous examples, probably about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, maybe about 12 or 13 examples today, which is a lot, but they're very quick examples, and I don't think you'll find the math today really that difficult, okay? So go ahead and please turn to page 3. Now, page 3, example 1, in fact, that's what I'd like you to write in your notes. Please don't draw these figures in your notes. In your notes, I would like you to write down page 3, example 1. That's all that I want you to put in your notes, okay? Again, I'm saving you time. I don't want you to have to draw these figures in your notes. That takes too much time. So, in your notes, please write down page 3, example 1. And your book should be open, and the directions say, describe a pattern in the figures, excuse me. Describe a pattern in the figures. Well, this shouldn't be too difficult for you students. First of all, I notice this is a triangle, which means it has 3 sides. This is a quadrilateral. It has 4 sides. This is a pentagon, which means it has 5 sides, and this figure here is a hexagon, which means it has 6 sides. Now, if you don't have all of those terms memorized, hexagon, pentagon, that's okay, don't worry about that. The main thing you need to realize is this figure had 3 sides, this one 4, this one 5, this one 6. So if you were to draw the next figure in this series, which I'm not going to make you do, but if you were, it would be a 7-sided polygon. Do you see the pattern? As we went along, each figure increased by 1 side. So you're just looking for a pattern. This figure had 3 sides, this one had 4, this one had 5, this one had 6. Sometimes it will deal with sides like this one did, sometimes it will deal with something else, and you have to look at each one and try to figure it out. Okay, in your notes, I'd like you to copy this sequence of numbers down, please. I want you to write down 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, and 18. Now students, this is really, really simple. I would like you to look for a pattern, and I think it's pretty obvious what the pattern is, and I would like you to write the next 2 numbers that would come next in this pattern. Well, if we're going from 3 to 6 to 9 to 12, etc., it's obvious we're adding 3 over and over and over. Or in other words, we're counting by 3. Does everybody see that? It's pretty simple. So it's your job to look at a list of numbers and figure out the pattern. Some will be a little more difficult than others. Some will be pretty easy. So the pattern is 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18. So obviously the next number would be 21 and the next number would be 24. Just add 3 to 18 and add 3 to 21. Pretty simple. Okay, in your notes, I'd like you to write down this list of numbers, please. 1, 4, 9, 16, 25, and 36. Now this list here, the pattern that you're looking for, is a little more difficult, but it's still not difficult. I mean, we can look at many things. First of all, are we multiplying by 4? 1 times 4 is 4, so let's multiply by 4 again. 4 times 4 would be, nope, 16, and this is a 9 right here. So we're not multiplying by 9. Well, let's see what we're adding. Here we added 1 plus 3, gave us 4, and then 4 to 9, that means you'd have to add 5. So it looks like we're not adding 3 over and over and over. Now please take some really good notes on this, okay? But as I continue along, I'm going to see a different pattern. From 9 to 6, I would have to add 7 to the 9. From 16 to 25, I would have to add 9. And from 25 to 36, I would have to add 11 to the 25. Do you see that? So look at the pattern. You added 3, then you added 5, then you added 7, then you added 9, then you added 11. Do you see the pattern? You're adding odd numbers starting with 3. So you added 3, the next number, odd number is 5, the next odd number is 7, the next odd number is 9, the next odd number is 11. So the next odd number would be 13. So we're going to take 36 plus 13, and that would give you 49. So there's the next number in the series or sequence. And then if we added 13, the next odd number is 15. So we're going to add 15, and 49 plus 15 would be 64. And there we go. So every pattern will be a little different, but that's the challenge of this lesson. It's kind of like a puzzle. You need to look at a list of numbers or figures and try to figure out the pattern. Okay, let's continue on. Now in your notes, I do not want you to write these figures down. I want you to write down page 3, bottom number 1. Page 3, bottom number 1. Now I know I'm giving you a lot of examples. I know this is a little redundant, but I'd rather be a little boring than lose you, and I want to give you tons of examples in this lesson. And they're still pretty fast examples, and they're not that difficult, okay? All right, so page 3, bottom number 1. I don't want you to copy these figures. Just copy down page 3 in your notes, bottom number 1. Then go ahead and look in your books at page 3, the bottom number 1. It says describe a pattern. Describe a pattern. Well, we notice here we have a circle divided up in 2 equal parts. Then we have a circle here divided up into 3 equal parts. I think this is really obvious. Then you have a circle drawn up into 4 equal parts. And so obviously, now when they say describe, look at the directions please in your book. The directions say to describe a pattern. If they wanted you to draw the next figure, then the directions would have said draw the next figure that would come in this series of figures. But it doesn't say that. It says describe it. So you're going to have to use words. So you would say the next figure would be what? Write this down, please. A circle that is what? Divided into what? How many parts? 5. And don't forget the word equal, because every one is at equal parts. All 4 of these parts were the same, all 3 of these were the same, and these 2 were the same. So the next figure would be a circle divided into 5 equal parts. There you go. You described it. Okay, let's continue on. Let's take a look now in your notes. I do not want you to write these pictures down. I want you to write in your notes page 3, bottom number 2. Please copy this in your notes right here. Page 3, bottom number 2. And the directions say to describe the next figure in the pattern. Okay, well, if you look, we have a circle with a bunch of, almost looks like a sunshine, you know, with kind of like a bright sunshine. And this arrow right here, if you'll look in your book, let me get my pen up here and working. Notice this arrow here is colored in your books. And then notice in your books, this arrow is colored in. And then notice in your books, this arrow is colored in. So the next figure, and there's many words you could use, but I would simply say the next figure would be a what? It would be a circle with triangles. And then I would put something like, and on a test or a quiz, I would totally understand what you mean. You would say a circle with triangles, something like shaded triangle, and then it's moving counterclockwise. Remember, clockwise would be going this way like a clock does, and these triangles are going from here, then to here, then to here, and then to here. That's counterclockwise. So a circle with triangles, and the shaded triangle is moving counterclockwise. Now I know I don't have the best handwriting in the world, but I think you guys can see what I'm writing here. Okay, there we go. So we found the pattern again. Once again, it's not supposed to be difficult. It's actually pretty simple. It's just learning to find patterns and to then take those patterns and describe what's going to come next, okay? And figure kind of what's going to be next with a list of numbers or figures. Okay, I'd like you to copy these list of numbers in your notes, if you would, please. Now, once again, I would like you to write the next two numbers that come in this list of numbers. And this one's not too difficult. If you look, you're going from 4 to 8 to 12 to 16. And so it looks like we're adding 4 over and over. And that's exactly what we're doing. We're adding 4 to each number over and over and over, or in other words, we're counting by 4. So 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24. The next number would be 28, and the next number would be 32. And students, that's really, really simple. Okay, we're just looking for a pattern. Okay, moving on to this next list of numbers. Please copy these lists of numbers in your notes. 35, 30, 25, 20, 15, and 10. Now in this case, notice the numbers are getting smaller as you move to the left. And we're trying to find, I'm going to put two blanks over here, we're trying to find the next two numbers that would come in this list of numbers. Well, it looks like I'm subtracting 5, excuse me, and then subtracting 5 again, and then subtracting 5 again over and over. And that is correct. 35 minus 5, 30 minus 5, 25 minus 5, 20 minus 5, 15 minus 5, and then here's 10. So 10 minus 5 would be 5, and then 5 minus 5 would be 0. We could continue, by the way. You can use negative numbers in a list. The next number in the list would be -5. Okay, so once again, we're just looking for a pattern and then finding the next figure, or we're describing the next figure, or we're writing the next two numbers down. All right, let's continue on. Okay, now in your notes, I do not want you to draw these figures. It takes too much time. In your notes, I would like you to simply write page 4, example number 3. Please take a second and copy that in your notes. Page 4, example number 3. And now if you'll turn there in your books, you will see these figures right here. And the directions read as follows. Let me turn over there in my book. The directions say sketch the next figure that you expect in the pattern. So in this case here, they do not want you to describe the next figure. They want you to actually draw the figure, okay? And if you're not a very good drawer, that's fine. I'm not a very good artist either, but let's see if we can't figure this out. First of all, notice that we have an arrow pointing up, then we have an arrow pointing to the left, and then we have an arrow pointing down. So probably the next figure, if you're just using common sense, I would think in the next figure, you would have an arrow going to the right. That would make sense to me, okay? So let's go ahead and let's see if I can do this pretty well here. Over to here, up, down. And again, you should feel very comfortable in my class if you're not a good artist, because I'm not a very good artist either. Okay, there we go. And so we know the arrow is pointing up, then to the left, then down, and now it's pointing to the right. Notice the color of the I'm using a different color of blue, but you get the point. The color of the diamond was blue around the arrow. Do you see that okay? Blue here and here, blue here and here, blue here and here. Notice the arrow is green here, then it's orange here, then it's green here. So I can only assume the next color that I need to use is orange, and so my color right here is going to be orange. And that's very important, okay, that you get the color right. So there we go. Does that make sense, students? The arrow is pointing up, and then to the left, and then down, and now to the right. And then the arrow was green, then orange, then green, and then orange. Okay, I hope that makes sense. Okay, let's continue on. Now, once you get in your notes, please don't color, or please don't draw these figures. I simply want you to write page 4, example 4. Page 4, example 4. All right, please write that in your notes, and let's go ahead and read the directions. You can follow along in your book. It says sketch the next figure that you would expect in the pattern. And I'm probably insulting your intelligence quite a bit. This is really a simple lesson, but be thankful, because the lessons obviously get much harder as we move through the book. But the first lesson we cover here, lesson 1.1, is a pretty simple lesson. But it's good for you because you're learning to make opinions or estimations or guesses or conjectures about the future based on a pattern that you see. And it's very important that you see that. Okay, In figure number 1, we have 1 block in the bottom. In figure number 2, we have 2 in the bottom, and then we build up like a staircase. In figure number 3, we have 3 in the bottom, and then we build up like a staircase. Here we have 4 in the bottom, and we build up like a staircase. This one has 5 in the staircase. So it only makes sense to me that our next figure is going to have 6 in the bottom. Okay, and then notice from then on it goes 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Here it went 4, 3, 2, 1, 3, 2, 1. So if we have 6 here, next it would be 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Next it would be 4. And of course my drawings are not that good, but you get the idea. That's the main thing. Let's see. 1, 2, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, and then 1. So there we go. Pretty simple, students. It really is. Okay, we're just looking for a pattern. Okay, example number 5. Again, I do not want you to draw these figures in your notes. It takes too much time. Please copy this in your notes right here. Page 4, bottom number 5. Page 4, bottom number 5. We're going to go really fast now and finish this lesson up. And so here we go. Notice we have the arrow here, this really big arrow pointing to the left, and then notice the big arrow is pointing down, and then it's pointing to the left. So it makes sense to me the next figure would be pointing upward like this. Okay, it was pointing to the right, then down, to the left, and then up. And I should have made that black. I'm going to make that change very quick to be consistent with our drawing. There we go. And then it looks like we have a black line going right down the middle like this. And then notice the colors went blue, orange, green, green, blue, then orange, blue, and now we're going to flip it going up. Now the only problem here is this. Will this side over here be green and this side blue? Or will this side over here be blue and this side green? Well, here's where you really got to stop and think. Notice on the two arrows that were blue and orange, and over here orange and blue, notice when they switched directions they also switched sides. So this one's pointing to the right, this one's pointing to the left, and then notice orange was down, now it's up, blue is up, now it's down. So we're going to apply that same logic to this figure here. Notice this one's pointing down and this one's pointing up. Okay, green was over here, blue was over here, so we're going to say now that blue is over here and that green is over here. And that is the correct answer, and that is the correct logic that you should use there. Does that make sense? Let me say it one more time. We'll move on. Notice when the arrow was pointing to the right and then pointing to the left, notice blue was up, orange was down, then orange was up and blue was down. So with the same reasoning in mind, the arrow is pointing up, the arrow is pointing down, the arrow is pointing up, green's here, blue's here, so blue's here and green is here. I hope that makes sense. Let's continue on. Almost done, students. Just a couple more examples. We're finally finished. Okay, sketch the next, actually it says to sketch the next 2 figures. I did not catch that, and so going back a page real quick, we should sketch the next one too. And if we continued in this sequence, notice this one's pointing to the right, this one here is pointing down, this one's pointing to the left, this one's pointing up, and so the next one would point to the right. So the next figure would be this exact same figure right here. So I'm not going to take time and draw that for you, but it would be the exact same figure over here, an arrow pointing to the right with blue up here and orange down here. Okay, all right, moving on to the next one here. Now again, don't copy these figures down here, just copy into your notes, page 6 or page 4, bottom number 6. Now they want us to write the next 2 figures that would come in this series of figures, figure out a pattern and write the next 2 figures. Now notice here we have 1 block in the bottom. Here we have 3 blocks in the bottom, and here we have 5 blocks in the bottom. So it looks like we're going to have 1, 3, 5. So it looks, I'm going to use circles, it's a little faster. So we have 7. Just pretend those are blocks. In the next figure, we have 7, and then they want the next figure after that. That would be 9. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Now look, we go from 3 up to 1. Here we go from 5 to 3 to 1. Okay, so if we have 7, then next we have 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, then 3, 1, 2, 3, and then 1. Okay, over here we have 9. So 9 minus 2 is 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The next is 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And the next is 3. 1, 2, 3. And the next is 1. Now I'm using circles instead of blocks, so I hope you understand the difference. It's just faster to use circles. But are you seeing the pattern? And the first figure had 1 block in the bottom, the next figure had 3 blocks in the bottom, the next figure had 5 blocks in the bottom, so the next figure here would have 7 blocks in the bottom, the next figure here would have 9 blocks in the bottom, and notice it goes 3 then 1, and then it goes 5 3 1, so this would be 7 5 3 1, and this would be 9 7 5 3 1. Okay, just kind of using common sense and reasoning and looking for a pattern. Okay, let's find the next two numbers in this series here. Now be really careful. We're going from -2 to -5. Now think of a number line. Okay, here's 0, here's -2, here's -5. Look, we're getting smaller. So we're not adding a number, we're subtracting. And it looks like to me that we're subtracting 3 over and over. Like -2 minus 3 is -5, and -5 minus 3 is -8, and -8 minus 3 is -11, and -11 minus 3 would be -14, and -14 minus 3 would be -17. Do you see how the numbers are moving this direction in the number line? Remember, whenever you move to the left in a number line, you're getting smaller, and whenever you move to the right on a number line, you're getting larger. Well, these numbers started at -2 and they went to -11. So we started here, we're going this direction, the numbers are getting smaller, thus we're subtracting a number over and over and over. So we subtracted 3, subtracted 3, subtracted 3, subtracted 3, subtracted 3, and then subtracted 3. So the next two numbers that would come in this list of numbers would be -14 and -17. Okay, all right, moving on to this. Please copy these list of numbers in your notes, and I believe this is your last problem. So very good, we're finally done. Hopefully you've listened well, and we're just about finished. I think the lesson's been pretty simple. Okay, the list of numbers is 4, 10, 16, and 22. 4, 10, 16, and 22. All right, now from 4 to 10, well, we added 6. From 10 to 16, we added 6. And from 16 to 22 we added 6. So if I'm evaluating this pattern correctly, we're just adding 6 over and over. So 22 plus 6 would be 28, and 28 plus 6 would be 34. And that's it. Okay, so in the beginning basics of geometry, we're learning to find patterns so that we can make intelligent conjectures or hypothesis about a certain situation. And you do that by finding a pattern first, and then of course going from there and then figuring out what would come next. Okay, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to call or email.